There is no better way to gear up for financial aid than a bit of Rocky music, some new enhancements, and a webinar. So get ready to enjoy a very interesting webinar on the new premium and the full subscription enhancements for the academic year
while we're on the call.
1920.
If we can't, we'll go
Thanks
ahead and
so
do
much.
that after the fact. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I also want to let everybody know, my name is Alisa Evans. For those of you that don't actually know me, I'm the Director of Business Development for SSS over here. And I have been working in this program, gosh, for almost 9 years now. And every year it's sort of that race to get the new features in, to get everything up and running, and then get you guys rocking and rolling for your season to start. And then this year, a couple things happened. Schools are now opening their season much sooner, and frankly, I feel like we haven't even finished 18-19, and now 19-20 is here in front of us. And that's just a product of the way our market has shifted, and a lot of that has to do with families are starting things sooner in admissions, and because admissions and financial aid are sort of peanut butter and jelly now, they so much go together that we did move up our openings last year for schools to start doing their work at the end of September and the families to start logging in on October 2nd. So that's happened this year as well. So everybody can go in and start doing their settings for academic year 19-20. As you know, you'll always have access to academic year 18-19, and your families can also start applying for financial aid for 19-20 come October 2nd. So that remains the same. What's new this year, and I think the real reason we wanted to make sure we did just a quick what's happening, and we'll dive more deeply as the system is up and live and people are really out of summer mode and into the fall season, we'll dive more deeply into this. But I wanted to just take 10 minutes to give you two things. One, what has happened in the world of financial aid in our subscription area, and two, just financial aid in general has changed, and I want to make sure you understand how we came up with this premium subscription. Is premium something everybody needs to use? Absolutely not. Are there lots of schools that are going to need it? Yes, depending on what your processing is. So to make that decision clearer for you, so if you've just logged in for the first time saying, okay, I see the full subscription, which SSS had since the dawn of time, and now I see this new premium subscription, and while one-pagers that kind of give you that side-by-side comparison give you insights, but we wanted to explain a little bit further how we came up with it, how the pricing was structured, how that's going to be different than the full subscription this year, and then you can make an informed decision. If you've already renewed, your subscription is full, you see this and you say, oh dear, I should have actually done premium, we can handle that. You're not bound or stuck by it. We can go ahead and handle that. You can reach out to our client success folks or myself, and we'll help you work through it. So I'm going to send you this PowerPoint, so you don't need to read this now, but the big things that have been driving us, myself, Anita, Harper, the folks at Community Brands, is that things have changed quite a bit in financial aid, in enrollment, and we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what happens in higher ed, because that tends to be, and I know you guys heard me say this before, but for several years, they're sort of ahead of us in things that need to be changed and adjusted. And one of the big things that came up, which is what drove us to this world of offering a new subscription concept, is that about 3 years ago, Anita and I were talking about it, it is really almost 3 years now, that the FAFSA announced, given that she had a child going to college and she was filling out the FAFSA, had moved to this new thing called prior, which outside of our world sounds like crazy business because nobody knows what the heck that means. But FAFSA moved to this concept called tax verification of prior year taxes and prior. And really what that meant was that they were essentially going to use 2 years of tax returns to verify what the families had suggested they could afford. You know, they're filling out their answers. They're verifying with tax returns that were readily available so that they could have March 1 deadlines, and they could do their early admission deadlines very early with a pretty good sense of what families can afford to pay. So we sat back at NAIS and SSS at the time and said, that's interesting. Let's see how this goes. And we have learned over the years, you don't just make changes because something new has come out. We have learned our lesson deeply on that over the years. And so we watched it happen for academic year 17-18. And then 18-19 was rolling around, and we were doing a meeting at a school in New England that offered to host us to do a fall meeting to just kind of gear our SSS team up for what's happening in the next academic year. And the head of school and the admissions director popped in and said, hey, just so you know, we're going to be doing what the FAFSA is doing, which is the prior year tax verification. So you can do that, right? And we sort of sat back and said, okay, so we're here. Now we're going to do it. So we need to really start thinking about this in a really clear way so that we can offer it to schools that need it. If schools are thinking about it but don't want to make that transition, we can't just force 2,000 schools to make a very big shift in how they do their work. So how are we going to deal with this? So really this work started 2 years ago and then last year. Fast forward to this year, and now we were ready to launch what we've essentially delivered in two separate, I always call it skins of the system, but two separate skins of the system that will look differently depending on what system you're using, if you're using our full subscription or you're using the premium subscription. So once we got to that place, I'm going to use the terms that going forward because it's too darn confusing to talk about prior and prior year. So I'm just going to talk in terms of the actual tax forms so that everybody is clear, because what the FAFSA calls it and what we call it are different terms, but it means the same exact tax year. And once we've gotten through that, Anita and I were spending way too much time doing the who's on first and what's on second comedy gig that we just figured for this year, let's just tell people exactly the tax years we're talking about. So what are we going to be doing? We are going to show you the subscription, the tax data forms, and we'll get through that. But I also, given the time that we have, and it is the timing of subscriptions, I want to make sure you know what is actually coming in for whether you're doing full, whether you're doing premium. There are some new enhancements that we've built that I think will be really helpful for everybody. And we'll talk about that first and then get into the tax forms, because there's certainly going to be people on here that they're not going to use the 2017 tax returns to do data verification. But you do want to know what's happening in the world of SSS enhancements. And so because this was implemented for 1920, you'll know that as of today, everything is live. So once you get off this call, you do your, if you've already done your subscription and you've got the premium, now you're going to start to see some of the stuff we're talking about. If you've done the full subscription, you're also going to see some of these things that we're talking about. And we'll go more deeply into those as the season starts to go on. So as we started with our enhancements for academic year 1920, what we did was talked through what are the needs of our schools? Obviously, knowing that higher ed is sort of drives that FAFSA 2-year tax thing, and that's fine. We got that down. But really the big problem we saw and the trend that we saw, and we'll be sharing data on that shortly, is that schools, independent schools, are losing that middle income group. And by middle income, we mean folks that make anywhere from $100,000 to say $350,000, where your tuition feels too expensive to pay the full boat, but they feel like they make too much money to be able to afford it. So you have families that have just opted out of applying that would have gotten financial aid, but just didn't think that it was for them. And so using that as our guideline as to what was the big problems that schools were experiencing, we wanted to make our enhancements built around that to make that process easier for families, particularly those middle income families that potentially have a more complex tax return, and to make it easier for you to do your job, knowing that your job is a lot harder now because you have that really complex, different type of family than you had 10 years ago, and they're really wanting you to give them the pitch. Why am I spending this money? What's in it for me? And then the age of our families are decreasing. So we've got a lot going on. The first thing that's going to be available as an enhancement for everyone is the document status categories. So I didn't have time to put a screenshot together, but in the chat feature, you're going to see I put it into the section, the new tax document statuses. So how does that make anybody's life easier? Well, any of you that have had to try to sort and filter based on those that you're chasing tax returns down, knowing exactly what documents are in, what the status of the document verification is in, and if a family has done a not applicable, meaning they don't have a tax document that you've required, knowing that and being able to adjust for that so that you have a true picture of who still has document pending, who's completed. You know, maybe now I can go in and complete the process and I don't have to chase down X, Y, and Z family. So we built some more clarity around that, and that was directly from feedback we received from a lot of our schools, but particularly those that were in our FAA program. And we really felt that when we reviewed 2,300 applications, you really see areas where we can make some global improvements to give you your time and effort spent in the folder the utmost speed and convenience. So adding those document status, while that sounds like not a big thing, it really is a big thing on the back end with the documents collection. So you'll see those statuses in the little category over to the right-hand side over in our Q&A section chat feature, but I'll send it to you in a nice little screenshot after. The business type and filtering and sorting and tax collection. So we've got a lot of business owners, and frankly, with the new tax reform, loosely defined as reform, it is going to be in 2018, those of us that are looking at 2018 tax returns, it is going to get far more complex for parents to know exactly what's in front of them. A lot of them are just going to file an extension because there are some complexities. Folks that filed as a business, there's some additional advantages. And so you're going to find folks that maybe were a Schedule C are now going to be an S Corp, or LLCs changing around. So we will want to be able to know what business type, because as Anita will tell you, there is money in places you never knew existed. And while it's awesome for tax collection and sheltering and things like that, it's not awesome for a mathematical equation that's trying to get to the number that says, how much can this family afford? So there's going to be some additional filtering and sorting that you can do. And then you can ask for the 1065s, the 1120Ss, and all of those additional forms in a very easy and more manageable way. The next thing we're talking about is estimates from the PFS displayed on the FCW for 2019. And I'm going to show you that because this is just like game changer for me. The less you have to actually physically look at a PFS, the application, and just do your work in the family contribution worksheet, the better. And one of the things we never got to years ago was adding an additional column that said, regardless if you use prior year verification, if you use current year verification of taxes, if someone has lost their job yesterday and it's already in the next year, you need to know about it, or they're planning on losing their job and they know about it. And having that right in line with the, what did they make last year is going to be critically important, particularly if you have not a lot of time to make decisions, you're at the awarding phase and you want the numbers to be up to date and accurate. You have that ability on the fly to see that the numbers are changing and why, and then you can make that change without having to download the PFS and read it and then say, oh, okay, things are changing here. Or you get that quick identification that there's a handful of folks that their taxes or life has changed for them, and then you can start doing your outreach. What's going on? Why is your income going from 100,000 to zero? And you're not having to do a lot of extra steps to get that data. So that will actually appear on the, as a far column on your FCW of what the family suggested was the estimates for 2019 for all of those areas we asked, what happened in 18 and what are you expecting for 2019? To me, that's going to be an amazing time saver for schools. So the next thing is sending and tracking award notifications and acknowledgements using our mass email functionality. That is a mouthful, but what happened last year in the FAA program is I had two amazing schools, so Hollywood Schoolhouse and Marin went and helped me to kind of see that oftentimes you're sending an award notification for financial aid in advance of a contract coming out. And oftentimes people don't love to read stuff, as we all know, and they get their contract and say, what do you mean this is my financial aid? I thought I was getting this or that, or I don't want this, or whatever their answer might be. But by the time you find out about it, it's right at contracting time. Had you known 3 weeks ago when you did the final awards on that or the awarding on it, you would have really, if they were going to make a fuss about it, you would have known right away. And so we did this with 2 schools just to see how the capability would work. And so essentially you have the ability to create a custom, just like you do now, a custom email template with mail merge capabilities in it. And then you put your awards, you could put your awards in the student folders, and it would then in the mail merge come into the mail merge, dear so-and-so, insert name type thing, and has your logos and everything. The nice thing is that if they hit reply, it goes to you or whomever you want it to go to. And now they have the ability to acknowledge receipt of not only the email, but acknowledge receipt of the award. Yes, I've received this. And so it gives you that, not that you need evidence that they've received it, they've read it, they've processed it, but it does give you that one less step. If there are schools out there that used to print all the awards and then mail merge them or get them from SSH, print them in a document, sign them, and then mail them to their families acknowledging the awards, given using this as our precedence, as that we're dealing with middle income families a lot, we're dealing with younger families that say, just send me an email. And so now we're able to do that email functionality and then acknowledgement. And I think that will save schools that have done it different ways lots of time. The other sort of secret good news for us is that oftentimes you guys don't put your awards back into SSS. And we have about, with 175,000 applications, we have amazing data on your families. What are the average incomes? What are the average families offering for financial aid? And what are they saying and this, that, the other thing? What are they spending on different things? Where we can't close that gap is what was the award that they accepted? What did they end up getting from you? So a family making between 120,000 and 130,000 in San Francisco typically gets an award or accepts an award of between $8,000 and $9,000. This is the data we want to get to. And because only 30% of our schools end up putting the awards back in the system, because really there's not a great advantage to doing that unless you're integrated with Ravenna or you're going to be integrating with another tool that works with SSS, it's that data just sort of stays in one place. But by being able to send the award notifications, we're hopeful that you'll do more of those, putting the awards in, so that we can give you some recommendations going forward that maybe eventually we say, hey, this family, this type of a family will typically take an award between this and this, because financial aid and enrollment are now part of an enrollment strategy. And being able to get some artificial intelligence based on data is going to be really critical, and we have boatloads of it. So I encourage you to use this. I encourage you to put your awards in the system and save yourself the time, but we're also using it as a way to be more productive and helpful in return to you as a school. Monthly income and expense on demand. So a lot of schools actually use the monthly income and expense tool for all of their families. And all that means is that we have families fill out a monthly budget essentially to us. But not all schools want everybody to fill it out, but some schools, schools want maybe one person to fill it out because something doesn't match up. You can now just click that button that says, please require the monthly income and expense from the Smith family because nothing matches up here. We can do that through the system for one family, and you don't have to make it a mass required thing. So for those of you that have not made it sort of required for everybody, but you did want the ability to ask of that from one or two families, you'll have that ability to do that on demand. And last but not least, and it is all sorts of other little functionality things. It's hard to always come up with like, what did you build over this past year? Because now using Salesforce as our platform, we get a lot of things going on. So we do a lot of things just on the fly. But the last piece is this, again, talking about this middle income and changing tax reform. We have this new issue with 529 plans being, not an issue, but being available to families. They can use it for K through 12 education expenses. And so we had 529s identified as part of their asset allocation of non-retirement assets. However, we will now add an additional row that specifically reaches out and asks for 529 plan dollar amounts by child and details, and you'll be able to see that detail displayed out. So that's a lot of information so far, and I know I want to give you that sort of snippet of data, but let me just quickly go back to this chat feature here, which I'm not as familiar with. If there's any questions and things like that, if you want to shoot those in the system, put them in there, and I'll make sure to try to grab those. What is specific to premium only? And again, I had a wonderful video that I put together, and perhaps I'll just send you that after, but what is specifically an enhancement only that you can only get in premium? And that's what I'm going to talk about real quickly. So back to the FAFSA concept of using prior year tax returns so that really you could be done with financial aid within a very short period of time, because there are no more extensions on the 2017 tax returns after October of this, in the next month or so. So when we're talking about prior year, prior, all that business, all we are saying is that if you are using the full subscription, our system will collect and do data verification, as we always have, on the 2018 tax returns. And you can then press the little green button and it'll push it over, or you can automatically have us override what the family said with the 2018 tax returns once they're in. We can collect the 2018 taxes and the 2017 taxes for the full subscription. We will not do verification, meaning plucking the data off of the tax returns for 2017 and displaying it like we did last year for some schools that wanted it. That will not be part of the full subscription. So what is part of the premium subscription is twofold. If you do data verification using the prior year taxes, which would be the FAFSA version of things, we are going to take their 2019-20 application. We are going to have them submit their 2017 taxes whenever they apply, essentially. And then you as a school will be able to then override what the family said with the 2017 taxes or with the 2018 taxes when those come in. So if you're a school that says, I'm going all in on the 2017 taxes and that's all I'm using, and I'll catch the 2018s in 2021, you can do that. Last year, you didn't have the ability to push over the data, essentially to skip over that current year tax return to override what the parent said. You will now have a button on both 2018 and 2017. So what you can see and appreciate is that now we have to verify taxes on 2 years worth of tax returns, pluck that data off, display it, and then build in capabilities to override. So that's why it's a premium subscription, and it's skinned slightly differently. We are also, because some schools said, in the boarding school said, well, yes, we want to do it on the 2017 taxes, but just for reference, I would like to be able to see the 2016 taxes as well for this upcoming year. So we are also going to allow for the premium subscription schools to collect the 2016 taxes should they need those. Now, if you have any returning families, that data will just push and they won't have to upload it again. But we're going to be able to collect those 3 years of tax returns for those premium subscription schools. And if you choose to use the FAFSA version of things, which is let's use the 2017s to either make our preliminary awards or our actual awards, you can do that. And then you can decide if you wanted to override with 2018 when those come in, you can do that as well, or you can pick and choose depending on the student's record. So you've got that sort of global ability to do it, and then you have the individual ability to do it depending on the parent you're looking at. That's a lot to digest, and I'll show you a picture of that. The other thing that's going to be unique to premium is allowing for us to customize, to give you some of these custom canned reports. So essentially going forward in the next couple of years, the My Applicants page, which is really a holdover from Composys, which we used years ago, when schools would do their folder review student by student by student, year by year by year. And nowadays, you don't have time for that. And if there are not as many people that their profession is financial aid director, and that's all they do all day, every day, you have every other job plus parking lot duty. So the ability to have you do what you're already doing, which is essentially taking the reports and downloading it to Excel, and then doing your work saying, okay, what happened in 2018, what happened in 2017, and then you making a decision for your returning families on what you're going to give them for a new award. Many of you are already doing that, and you have these tremendously large Excel spreadsheets. We just have never given you a good way to do that. And so what we did is we bought a tool that's called Conga, and it's a license that we pay for every user that allows you to, allows our system to pull together data from 2 separate academic years, academic year 18-19 and academic year 19-20, and then display them for you. So John Smith you'd have John Smith, and then you'd have kind of like what you see in the quick view and in the FCW is this is what happened in 2018, this is what happened in 2019, and for income, for assets, for a bunch of different things. We gave them an 80% discount in 2018. Do you want to do the same for 2019? So there are 2 in there now. One is a year-over-year report, which will give you that by student year-over-year view, which essentially should replace our My Applicants look and view going in the next year or so, if we can get to that place, because that's how you do your work. But also we're going to have this projecting aid report. And a projecting aid report is essentially just taking all of your folks from 18-19 that are returning and have not graduated, coming up with a number, what we think that they can afford to pay for the next year, using the same percentage of what they have received previously. So in 18-19, if they were on an 80% discount, in 19-20, we're going to assume they're on an 80% discount, nothing changed in their life, and the tuition went up by 3%, so we put the new tuition in there, and then now you know precisely how much you have is going to be sort of essentially brought, kind of already taken by your returning families, and then what's left over from your graduating kids is what you have now for your new kids. And if your board is saying you need to grow third grade by X amount, and you know that you need to be doing discounting at a higher rate or more, maybe even just it's a bunch of those little $1,000 awards. And if that's not going to work because you only have $20,000 left over, knowing that now and being able to go to the finance committee and saying, listen, you want this, but we can't achieve this because we know all of our existing families are going to need this. And the way to encourage middle income families is potentially to give them a small discount. And in order to do that, I need more financial aid for my new families. And here's the data that backs that up. So you're going to have that report that's ready to roll in Premium, and there's not much manipulating that has to happen for those of you that don't love to use Excel. So that'll be baked in there. Last thing is, again, the mass requiring of the business document form. So if you wanted to mass require the 1120Ss from all the corps that require that form to do your work, you can do that in kind of in mass versus going into the folder, realizing that we needed X, Y, and Z additional forms, then requiring it from families. And we know how much they love to give us one document, let alone 5 documents. So we have an ability baked in now for you to be able to mass require it based on those business types. So we are totally at the 1:30 mark. So we're definitely, kind of through all of it. I would love to just kind of pop in and show you. I did have a video queued up, but it broke on me. So I'm gonna request from you guys on the phone. Would you prefer for me to just get that video ready to roll, which will then just take you through all that we discussed and send it to you in a little video form? Or do you want to have us go in live? If you would like us to just go in live right now, if there's an option to raise your hand, because now I'm going to get fancy pants here with this video tool. I'll do that, and I'll go in live should you need it. Although I hope you feel like you've got a better understanding between the differences between the 2 different subscription types. But I'll just have you guys. Let me see if I'm gonna. Anita, I've unlocked you so you can talk. Are you able? Is there an option to like select or raise a hand or something like that? Is that even an option?
Yeah, everybody, if you're looking at the bottom of your screen, you should see from the left a little chat feature. Right in the middle, you should see a little hand that says raise hand, and then the Q&A feature. I'm monitoring the chat, so if you have questions, you can ask right in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer those. If you want Alyssa to hop in and show you our demo site and what that FCW looks like, go ahead and click that raise your hand, and it should then indicate to Alyssa to go ahead and hop in.
All right, cool. And we've got some folks that are still on, and then we have other folks that are bailing out. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go for it. Let's dive in. If you can't stick around, do not worry about it, because I'm still going to, I'll still send it to you. It was just if you really desperately on this Thursday afternoon needed to have this information, I'm going to hop in right now. So let me just go ahead. Actually, I'll put you back on mute there. That way you're not feeling like you're clicking it's being heard. Okay. Let me hop in now. So ignore the chaos that is my screen right now. And we'll also get you a better version of what the different new document statuses are. So I wanted to I'll just show you those first couple of screenshots that we talked about. Because again, we don't actually have any folders that are, we don't have any people that have applied for 2019-20, so we can't really show you in a clear way what an award notification would look like. But so ignore the 18-19 here, but this is just a, artist rendering, if you will. This isn't from our test environment. So essentially what the family will have the ability to do is they'll have a little awards tab here that will give them notification of the awards that they've been granted, and then they have the ability to accept or acknowledge receipt of that. For schools that want us to offer that, it's not something you have to do, but that is part of, and everybody gets this capability, but this is part of the new feature. So when you're doing your setups and such, you're going to have that question of, do you want us to allow for that ability? And that will be, this is kind of what it looks like. It'll look much nicer. It's not just these 2 fields, but it'll have a little bit more in here. But essentially, this is what it'll look like from a user perspective. And then from the school's perspective, you're going to write up a nice letter. You could just even copy and paste the email, the letter that you actually do use now with the mail merge fields into our mass editing tool to be able to just do it as a mass email notification to families about their awards. And then they can also just then go in and do the acknowledge receipt. So you can do one or you can do both or just one. It's totally up to you. The other feature I wanted to show you in the form of a screenshot was in that premium subscription, being able to require the 3 years of tax returns is exactly how you do it now, right? So in the past, you would have gone in and say, I want my 2018, I want the 1040s, the W-2s, maybe the 1060, whatever you want globally. And then you would have selected, you wanted the 2017s, those would be your 2 years. That's available to require for whether you're in full or premium. So you get those 2 years of documents that we can request. And then with the premium subscription, you'll see this additional one for 2016. So you do it exactly as you've done in the past, and you'll see, I need, these 3 documents from these 3 years. That's what that's part of those new features, and I'll send you this screenshot. And hopefully I'm still, of course, I'm sure I've been not, perhaps I've been, let me see if I've been logged out of my full box here. Hopefully not. So in our test environment, and hopefully it's still live here, you'll see that we've got this. I'm just going to go into this students folder record, and hopefully it's still live, and I'm not. Fabulous. Okay, so this just happens to be a 2 PFS household, what have you, and we're going to go into the family contribution worksheet, much like we've done in the past. None of this is crazy different, but what you're seeing here, which shows you that difference. And again, we don't actually have any 1920 folders, and so I can't show you the estimates for 2019. But what it's going to, oh, do we have one in here, Anita?
Yeah, go ahead and just go onto your My Applicants tab, change it to 1920, and go into Omar Otterloop. The only thing we're not going to be able to show you is the actual verification data because we don't have that in there. We don't obviously have it. But if we now go to the family contribution worksheet, you'll now be able to see the view of what the new FCW will look like for you.
Yep. So for full schools, you're going to see current year verification as you have sort of always seen it before. And you're going to see parent estimates, which is off of the PFS. What premium subscription schools will now see is current year verification, prior year verification, and a key component to that, which is why I kind of wanted to show a prior year one for 18-19. So you see the layout of it where it says 18-19, 17-18, and then our estimates for 19-20. In the premium subscription, what is the artist rendering of that? What does that look like? When I use let me go to 18-19 just to show you quickly what that looks like with this student, because there's some tax data in there. What it will look like for the buttons, there's 2 big features that were changed. One, for those of you that actually did the prior year without having prior year being a thing, we always would just show you the percentage, not the dollar amount. And so now we've done that in reverse, right? So we're showing you the dollar amount, and then you'll see as you hover, it gives you that percentage change and things like that. And then you can decide, this is a good example, right? So and we're going to pretend this is 2017 and this is 2018. For alimony received, it was 706. And then in 2018, it was 705. And then you as a school can decide, do I want to override what the family suggested in the revisions column with the actuals from 2018 or the actuals from 2017. So that's the major difference. You never had, while you could see 2 years, there was no, you couldn't do a Frogger jump over to override. And so that's really, as I look at this, you would think this is such a simple thing. There is so much complexity behind this, which is why it's it's a completely different version of our system in some ways. And we need to be able to do that. And then you're going to start, we talked about that at the assets section. So in the assets section, now that 529 plans can be utilized in a way for up to $10,000 can be used towards non-public education. You will have that ability to see the 529. It is going to be on this family contribution worksheet. I'm going to guess somewhere, do we just have a new number, Anita?
If you'll notice on line 51, you'll see total assets, and then the formula is telling you 51A plus 51B plus 51C. 51A is what's going to be what was always there, what you normally have seen. We just now put it as 51A. 51B and 51C, 51B will be the 529s held on the student applicant, And 51C will be the 529s held on any dependents. And we'll add all of that up onto line 51 for you.
And even though we're doing it that way, it does, if you as a school have not really digested what this all means for you as a school in your policies, I mean, the good news is Mark Mitchell is really has good insights on what NAIS is giving us recommendations on how to manage this, how to deal with it, you know, what people's feelings are about it. And so we'll be doing, as part of our regular fall webinar series, that will obviously be a topic of major discussion, because we want schools to feel empowered to do one or the other, or however we decide to make that decision. And you know, for financial aid families, you may decide that this isn't the year you're going to do anything with it, but just so you know, we are going to be identifying that out uniquely, and then you'll have access to that. Okay, so as far as, and again, you'll always still have all of these same things that you've had previously. The advanced reports, so you'll see you have advanced lists, but then you have this advanced reports tab. This is the new tab that you're gonna see. And again, this is my test environment, so there's like random things in here that don't, you know, it's all in, I think, Latin. What's going to be here are those reports that I talked about, which is that year-over-year look at a student folder. So you've got John Smith and the year-over-year look, and it will export to Excel as of that moment in time, and it'll pull together academic year 18-19 and 19-20 with all of those fields that everybody is kind of looking to see what has changed. So income, assets, number of children in tuition charging schools, what they got last year, what was the percentage of award, et cetera, et cetera. That'll all be part of that. And then the other one will be that projecting aid report, which will help you to decipher what kind of financial aid you have coming left, kind of what's going to be used for the 19-20 season that you have for returning families, assuming nobody has lost their job or gained employment, and then what you have left over for those that will be coming in new, and making sure that you really do have the enrollment tools that you need, financial aid being one of them, and the right amount of money estimates, so that you can have that as you head into the new academic season. So that'll be under this new tab called Advanced Reports. Is there anywhere else, Anita, you want me to show that I can actually show? Because some, you know, again, some of this we just don't have the applications in yet. The other piece I really would encourage folks to go to is this FA forum, because we're talking so much about a lot of tax changes, and I know there's a lot of concern about what's that going to look like in the next couple of years. So, you know, I think we'll have a lot of input from NAIS on guidance and how do we deal with this going forward. And I think eventually we do have a ton of schools that are doing this prior year verification, following what the FAFSA does, because the timelines have to be, you know, everybody wants to be done with financial aid sooner. Let's just, you know, we have 4,000 users in here. Let's use each other to reach out to, nobody should feel like they're in a bubble in financial aid. And the only other thing I wanted to mention to everybody is that I know there's been a lot of discussion about, you know, Alisa hits the road, Kristen Power would hit the road in the fall to go do fall meetings, and we would do a conference in the usually in September, October timeframe. And I think the concern is that we're just not going to do that stuff anymore. But that's not who we are. That's not who we've ever been. And we always have provided support and help. And so you're still going to get all of the webinars and trainings that we've done. And we're working through really just a resource issue to get everybody together. And I know financial aid groups are starting to get together on their own, which is great. But we want to make sure we're helping you, and part of that, and as many of these regional meetings as we can get ourselves to, we're gonna do our best. And then I just wanted to throw out quickly, because you guys are part of our population that always comes to things, you always show up, and you always have been part of our system. We will have a conference track in June of 2019. So because you joined us today, you kind of get the hot off the press data that we will have a conference in June, which is frankly a way better time for our schools versus October, because by then, unfortunately nowadays, you guys are already hitting the road running. But June is sort of a nice lull time where we can decompress, we can postmortem. How did the 2017 tax return concept go? How did it work? And having that time early in the season to make some adjustments and changes and maybe offer some new features for 2020. So be on the lookout for that kind of stuff, but we don't want you to feel like you're, now that we're part of Community Brands, that somehow we're doing, you know, different things, or things are going to be different. We actually really just have access to more features, more insights, more ability to do support for our schools and make sure that your enrollment stays and keeps growing. All right, so I'm going to send you guys a video. I'm going to send you the PowerPoint, and I'm going to, we'll keep following up and just be on the lookout for stuff. If even after this you want to talk through with client success, is premium, do I need premium? Is it something I should be doing? What other schools in my area are doing the prior year, because maybe that's helpful to know. If all of Boston is doing prior year and you're doing the current year, you might be delayed, or all of LA or San Francisco, or what have you. We can help you kind of see what other folks are doing, and then help you get the right decision that's right for your school. Thank you guys so much for joining. And again, we'll be in touch, or just reach out to us if you have any questions, concerns, and we will be here. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.